Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota and I offer wisdom, tools, and support for personality integration. And today I'm going to be discussing this book, The 8 Keys to Self-Leadership by Dario Nardi. So I read this book last month. It was a part of the Typology Reading Challenge, which if you're interested in that, I'll have that playlist linked. If you'd like to read with me in May, the book that I'm reading is The Building Blocks of Personality Type by Liana Haas, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and Mark Hunziker. I can't pronounce either of those. Sorry about that. So if you're interested in this book, it says on the back, wouldn't it be nice to know the keys to more insightful perception and wiser decision making? So this book, let me see how long ago it was actually written. 2005. So this book is all about how to develop and grow and stretch into the 8 different cognitive functions. But the author Dario Nardi I actually interviewed on my channel a couple of weeks ago. I'll have that linked as well. And I asked him lots of questions about how to develop your cognitive functions. Should you develop them? You know, we talked about integrating the shadow. We talked about what it even means to develop them. And he actually said in that interview that when he wrote this book, Dario is an INTJ, by the way. He said that when he wrote this book, he was under the impression that he had already learned everything there is to know about NI, and so, because that's his dominant function, and that it would be more beneficial for him to go through and learn all about the other functions, which he said that he now knows that there was much more to NI that he could have been focused on. So I thought that that was really interesting because, you know, what I want to do with this book is I want to, pretty much there are these little quizzes that you can take for each function to see how developed that function is in you. It says assessing your current development. I'm going to go through those and take those with you and share with you my results. So that you can maybe think about them yourself. But he also says in here that we shouldn't necessarily feel like we have to be a master at all functions, because then we become a master of none. And we can sort of get in our own way when it comes to growth, and it's helpful to look at each of these functions and see how we can grow and also understand other people. And so pretty much what this book does is it talks about how each function works, what it looks like in people who use it really well, how it might be misused, how to better communicate with people who use those functions. And there are these little activities or exercises that you can do with each function to think through, I guess, to improve that aspect of yourself. And I would say that a lot of these are really like awesome things that anybody can do no matter what your type is. So for example, I just flipped to the NI section right now, and one of the introductory exercises says to clear and quiet your mind. Find a quiet place, shut out the noise, and add a soft, repetitive, natural sound like a waterfall or drumming, and focus inside yourself. So and then it says only the potential of your own mind exists. So for example, this might be an exercise that can help you, like if you are perhaps an ENFJ or ENTJ, that could be an exercise that can really help you dive into your auxiliary function and leverage that more. Or it could be like if you're an ENFP or ENTP, you might be wanting to sort of balance out the opposite of your NE more. But really, I guess what I want to say here is that any type can quiet their mind. So it's not, I don't think that any of these tips are, I guess, counterintuitive, in the sense that I don't think that any of the tips that he recommends are something that would be harmful for you to try, no matter what your type is. But also just keep in mind that these are split into like introductory exercises versus more advanced exercises. I just would also say that some of the advanced exercises, you might not really make that a goal within yourself to do if it is a function that you don't value. However, it might just inspire you to respect the type that does that well more, because you could think to yourself, wow, that looks really, really hard, and also know that it would be quite easy for someone who perhaps uses that as their dominant function. So before I do this quiz, these quizzes, I want to also share a part from the beginning where he talks about the essentials of self-leadership, because the book is called The 8 Keys to Self-Leadership. I figured it would be beneficial for me to even share what those qualities are. Why would one want to embark on self-leadership? So self-leadership takes 3 qualities. 1, knowing and valuing your natural talents, what you like to do and what you're good at. 2, being aware of what you're not so good at or you dislike, with a willingness to adapt or to accept challenges. And 3, persevering with flexibility when you encounter obstacles and setbacks. So I think that that is really the thing to keep in mind with this book, is that I relate to, I guess, how he thinks about this. And like, one of my first thoughts when learning type is like, okay, so how do I be great at every single function? You know, it's easy to think, oh, well, I don't need to work on my dominant anymore. I really need to learn all these other functions. I really like, and I don't know if this is common for NJ types more than others, but for me, he even says in the NI portion, let me just skip to it. One of the skills of NI is to transform yourself in a specific way by focusing inward on a way that you foresee that you'll need to be in the future. That is very relatable to me, and it's weird. I think that as an NI user, it's like I see these functions and I want to envision what it would be like to be that function, and then I try and push myself into using it, whether or not it's something that I value. And it seems like this self-leadership right here, it's like really the key is being aware of what your natural talents are, and also being willing to grow your strengths, but also willing to be flexible with them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to perfect your strengths or perfect your weaknesses, but it is important to just be aware and flexible and more playful with them. So I am going to now assess my current development of extroverted sensing. So part 1, instantly, so pretty much the way that this works is I'll read these statements, I'll tell you whether or not I agree, and then I'll tell you the amount of points that I get. And pretty much a score above 9 indicates a strong preference for extroverted sensing, and this will be the case with all the other ones. A score from 4 to 9 indicates a possible supporting preference or development from life experience, where a score below 4 suggests a lack of development. So I'm just gonna run through these and let you guys know. So part 1, instantly notice movement and impactful features in the environment. I would say that that's something I wish that I could do, but most of the time, no. I have done that before, but for example, when I did a video with an ESTP named Taylor, we were downtown, or like in Kansas City, we were like out, and I was focused on what we were saying, where he noticed that someone like popped a squat on the sidewalk or something, and I literally didn't notice because I was so enthralled in the conversation or in the video that like something could be happening right in front of me and I might not know. Whereas if I'm in like a people watching mode, then sure, maybe I can notice more impactful features in the environment, but most of the time, no. Another one says, freely follow your gut instincts and exciting physical impulses. I said yes for this. I see this as like a virtue. I want to follow my gut instinct when I can. I like to trust that. Sometimes that's not so great if your gut instinct is always, you know, to do something excessive or like to binge eat in some way. But I tend to have pretty high self-control, and so luckily my impulses don't ever get to the point where I've ever had to worry about controlling them that much. But I think I'm just such a control freak to my core that I don't even feel the physical impulses unless it feels right, if that makes sense. Like, even like, I don't drink as much as I used to in college, but when I did drink in college, like, I've never blacked out, and I've never gotten to the point where I like felt out of control, because I really hate the feeling of being out of control. Like, when I would drink at parties, I would feel like, oh no, I'm starting to get to that point where I don't feel like I can make conscious decisions, and that like freaks me out. Like, I always feel like I need to be in control, and so I never feel like my gut instincts supersede that need for control. But another one says, instantly read visible cues just to see how far you can go. I did not check that one. I think that I can look for visible cues. For me, like in middle school, for example, if I like had a crush on someone, I really would obsess over figuring out how to read body language. Or really in general, if I ever had a crush on anyone and I wanted to try and read them, that's probably the one time that I feel like I would look at visible cues. Like, I used to be so like, oh my god, their feet are pointing toward me, that means that they like me. Like, I would overanalyze the body signals a lot, but in everyday life I really don't notice. So okay, part 2. Quickly move to take advantage of immediate objects or immediate options for action. I sometimes do this. I could maybe say a 0.5, but I would say that if we're talking physical action, no. But if we're talking like an intuitive change of direction, I do that sometimes. Like, if I realize that something isn't working for me, then I will know how to see an opportunity and take it. But it's not like I just notice the new opportunities unless I feel first that what I'm doing isn't working for me. So also, easily get in sync physically with people and things around you. I'm gonna say maybe. So honestly, for part 2, for both of these, I'm gonna say like 0.5 for each, because I kind of do both. I think if I'm like at a concert, or feeling like really relaxed and like wanting to be with like my partner or with my family, and I'm tell myself, you need to be on right now, then I can for a few minutes get in sync and really focus on either them or the music or whatever it is. But most of the time I don't feel that in sync. I really enjoy that feeling. I wish that I remembered to do it more. It's one of those things that's like, I know I can do it, but I just forget to. So yeah, and I mean, I used to do that more when I would perform, like when I would sing or act or dance. It's this sort of flow state where I just completely lose myself in the moment, and I love that more than anything. I literally forget to do it. So part 3, become totally absorbed as you move, touch, and see what is around you. This is similar to the other one, but I mean, I don't really do this even if I am like at an art museum or like at some sort of exhibit. I feel like I have a very hard time like really fully feeling what's going on, because I'm always thinking about something else. And these are the sort of moments that I crave, but they're few and far between. So also, enjoy the thrill of action and physical experience in the present moment. I'm really not that active. I tend to be cool with just sitting on the couch and having deep conversations via my phone, or listening to a podcast. I really never liked sports. I do like people watching. I used to really like roller coasters. So yeah, I mean, no. I mean, I'm like afraid of zip lining. I don't really go out in nature. No. So the last question is, spur action and get results simply by making your present felt. So I say yes for this one. I feel like this is the element of SE that I'm the most comfortable with, which is just like, I'm gonna embody who I am and allow that to speak for itself. And I do think that I enjoy spurring action and allowing opportunities to come to me based on what I'm embodying in my presence. So I got a total point, the total points I got is 6 out of 16. So that means possible supporting preference. So that makes sense for me as a tertiary SE user. Okay, now onto introverted sensing. You guys, I really did not check pretty much any of these, so I might just read all of them to you and then discuss in general, because I really don't have much to say about this one. So, but part 1, follow the work, ideas, and examples of others who have come before you. This is something that I know and I recognize is so important, but I really don't think to do it. A problem with me is that I can think that I have to reinvent the wheel, or I can just forget to look things up. So yeah, I don't really do that. I sometimes can like look up to people that I admire, but I tend to see a lot of differences between what I want to do in this present context versus what they had to do in the past. So notice whether the details in front of you match what you're accustomed to. No, I don't ever do that. Review a lot of information over time to confirm to a customary standard. I don't even really know what that means by customary standard, or what that would look like. But I think that I literally just do the opposite of this. It's like I am resisting any sort of customary standard. Feel inclined to put a stop to something new to your experience. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Point out discrepancies between how things are and the way they've always been. No, I'm very, very bad at noticing if there's a change. Like, unless it's super obvious. So incremental change is very hard for me to spot. So in emergencies, you trust that situations have stabilized the situation in the past. I am going to say halfway there. So I'm going to give myself half points there, is that I do feel like I trust that the past sets a precedent. I just don't quite know how that looks or what in the past is going to continue into the future. So for example, even like with this coronavirus pandemic, I have faith that things will be okay, and I know that some things from the past are going to continue, but I have no clue what those things are. And I don't feel like I know, or if it's even my job to know. Like, I don't trust things such as the Declaration of Independence, or, you know, how people always are, because people are always changing. Like, to me, the only constant is change, and I don't like to get attached to anything. So I don't like to make assumptions about anything that has happened before, assuming that it's going to happen again. But I do know and trust that some things will stay constant. I just don't know what. So compare an experience against a storehouse of familiar experiences to find what's reliable. That sounds like rocket science to me. I really don't understand that at all. And in fact, I have a negative feeling toward it, because I'm like, why would you be comparing this brand new experience to some other familiar experiences that are completely different? So, but I understand that that is a great thing that SI does, because it could be very thorough and can see these patterns, but I just don't know how to do that. So also, perform the same regular work or activity every day at an even comfortable pace. this is pretty much the bane of my existence. I do not know how to do this. I'm constantly trying to do it and constantly failing. But at the same time, I really don't like feeling like I have to stick to something like that, because I don't trust that I am able to do it. And I don't know, it just feels very suffocating to me. So that means I have 1.5 technically out of 16, which is pretty abysmal. Yeah, so that indicates a lack of development. Sorry, my camera died, so I've moved to my phone. But now I'm moving on to assessing the development of my extroverted intuition. Part 1, often perceive how a pattern or dynamic is emerging. Yes, I definitely do this, but I don't think that I used to proactively do this. Like, if it was not for my ENFP best friend who I have had to listen to, like, for me to do this, it's because I've realized the value through talking to my friend a lot. But it's not something I would proactively do unless it was for like an assignment or for like English class, like analyzing a short story or something. I never would really do that with real life or see the value in it, but I definitely do now. The second one says, offer various unrelated ideas and see what potential they might suggest. Yes, I do this sometimes, but I tend to do it for a passion of mine or for a purpose of mine. So it's still related in some sense. So like, I'll sit down and say, I'm trying to brainstorm videos because I want to get this thesis statement across, or I want to get this certain thing across. So I'll sit down and I'll force myself for like 20 minutes to brainstorm and seemingly unrelated ideas, but it's still all for one purpose. So also keep following tangents and new ideas without limiting yourself to one. I do this sometimes, but I get upset whenever it's not just one. So whenever I do try and follow the tangents and not limit myself to one, I get frustrated and then try and limit it to one. But I do have this aspect in me that does do that. So honestly, for the last one, the unrelated ideas and this following new tangents, I'm giving myself half points on each of those, because it's like something that I can do and I sometimes do, but I also don't really enjoy. So part 2, engage life's magical moments and coincidences as they happen. So I have gotten really, really good at this. This is not something that I would have been good at in early college, high school. Honestly, it's something that I've been really realizing about myself over the last year that I am able to do, which is really awesome. Like, even, I know I mentioned this before, but like this coronavirus situation, nobody knows exactly what is going to happen. And I think that in the past I would have just wanted to know exactly what was going to happen, but I feel like I'm much better at embracing the sort of unknown. And again, this is influenced by my NP friends that have really shown me how they do it, I guess. But yeah, I'm happy to say I do that, I guess. Engaging in brainstorming and trust what emerges from it. Yes, absolutely. I love brainstorming, but also what I find so fascinating is whenever I don't know what I'm going to get, and I just trust that process. So what's the most fun for me is if ever I'm working with either my ENFJ best friend, who her and I do our digital marketing business together, Nova Solis. I'll link that below if you're curious, because we do have a course that's coming out called Brand Magic, that's starting on May 18th. Little plug there. But what I like to do with her is we like know that together, us going back and forth and brainstorming, that what's meant to be will emerge, and we have this sort of trust with each other that whenever we brainstorm together, it feels like this sort of divine experience where I don't know what will happen, but it's like the magic of it, like knowing that the right thing will emerge. So I really like that element of trusting what emerges. So part 3, try new ideas and interactions because they are new and different. No. I never try a new idea just because it's new. It has to have some sort of reason for me to care. So enjoy playing with random interconnections and patterns. I do this, but only when all of my work is done for the day and I feel like I'm allowed to. This can be a fun pastime. And sometimes I get distracted, but it's hard for me to really enjoy. And it's also like, how random are the interconnections really? To me, they never really feel random. I always want there to be some sort of purpose, but in general, I do like playing with patterns. So, last question. Weave into the current dynamics of a situation aspect of another random seeming context. I really don't like to pull any other sort of context into a specific situation. I like to stick to that situation's context. I can do this, and I've noticed NP friends do this, but it sometimes seems like a distraction. Even if they're not trying to make it be a distraction. So I'm going to say no to that one. And I got 9, which means possible supporting preference or development from life experience. Yeah, I definitely would say that in my life, I've been pretty surrounded by NPs, so it makes sense that they've rubbed off on me. And also in socionics, I'm an EIE, and NE is my demonstrative function, which means that I have 4-dimensional NE, which it makes sense to me. So pretty much for me, my NE in the shadow, it would be 4-dimensional, and my dominant function FE is also 4-dimensional, but for NE, it's unvalued yet strong. So it makes sense that it's something that is strong, but it's also not something that I love doing. So, okay, moving on to NI. Experience a sudden aha realization about a problem, coming as if out of nowhere. Yes, all the freaking time, like literally constantly. I don't even find them to be that special anymore. I tend to just expect it. Like, I was actually thinking the other day that I feel like sleeping on it would be a good thing for NI users to do, because almost always I feel like so much of that happens either before bed or right in the morning, whenever I just feel like I just know something suddenly that I wasn't really thinking much about. So, feel attracted to the symbolic, archetypal, or mysterious. Yes, absolutely. Experience a premonition or foresee the unexpected. Yes. Like literally all the time. And I feel like if you aren't an NI user, I understand how a lot of these things can seem a little bit out of this world, or maybe think like, really? Are you sure you aren't just exaggerating? But it's frustrating because all of this, it's so constant, and it's also so intangible that it's so hard to even give an example. So if you're like an SJ watching this, I understand SJs can maybe get annoyed or confused by NJs that are like, oh yes, I'm always feeling, I'm always foreseeing, and I'm always going like, aha. Like, what does that mean, right? But I don't know. It is what it is. Gain a profound realization from a mystical state or catharsis. Yes, definitely. Push your mind to envision a solution to a problem that hasn't come up yet. So yes, this is, I think, a good one to talk about, because it's something that's a constant for me. It's thinking of future potential, like thinking of what might happen and then trying to solve the problem before it happens. Or even like sometimes that can go to the extreme where I'm trying to solve a problem when I don't even have all of the information, all of the relevant information yet. So I'm kind of just wasting my time worrying. So, okay, part 3, synthesize a new idea that transcends various opposing points of view. Absolutely. That's even what I'm trying to do with typology. Like, I don't like to just say that's right and that's wrong. I like to really synthesize and find this sort of unified perspective. So, achieve a metamorphosis, definitive insight, or a powerful vision of change. Yes. Yeah, constantly. Also, transform yourself in a specific way by focusing inward on a way that you foresee that you'll need to be in the future. So I really, really love this one, and I want to talk about it a little bit more because I'm constantly doing this, and I love the way that this is worded because I think it really can explain what NI is doing if you're not an NI user. So for example, here's an example that's using, again, the coronavirus, since that's very talked about right now. So let's say I have the worry, I worry that my parents might, I'm worried for the safety of my family. So as opposed to how maybe an SI user would be calling to check on them, being like, are you taking your vitamins? Are you being safe? Like, I don't really think about any of the sensory at all. I completely ignore that. But instead, I think about sort of the worst case scenario, or I think about what sort of energy do I need to embody in order to get through this unknown? And I think, oh, you know what? I need to be grateful. I need to be graceful. I need to be humble. And I think about that, and then I try and embody that. And it makes me know that even if the worst case was to happen, if I am embodying this gratefulness, then that means that I did the most that I could possibly do. So that's one example of like just telling myself that I want to be grateful and make the most of my family all the time and focus on what I can control. To me, this is what I can control. And NI and SI are both about sort of organizing things. But for me, what I'm organizing is what sort of essence or what sort of perspective am I going to have toward a situation. That's why NI is known as being very intentional. Like, or even for example, like if I envision, because for example, sometimes I butt heads with my partner or my best friend, and I know these very specific ways that we butt heads because we always do, because we're different people, and it's not anything that is like a problem in compatibility, but it's like, you know that there's these ways that you're always gonna bump heads. It's like, I'll think about what I can do to de-escalate things before it happens. What can I, like, if a friend is going through a hard time and I know that they aren't going to really want to listen to my advice, I might then be like, okay, you might want to be pushy, but instead you have to transform how you're being so that you aren't being this way whenever this happens with them, because then that is going to make them be upset and make it worse for you. Like, that's like a weird example, but hopefully it can help you understand how NFJs think. So, okay, extroverted thinking. So, part one. Oh, by the way, I selected all of them, which is 16 out of 16. But okay, TE. Usually know the time and what point you're at in the process. No, what process? I don't know. Okay, determine success by measurement or other objective methods, such as the time taken. That is very hard for me because I feel like it changes depending on my mood emotionally or depending on how much energy I have that day, which I don't really manage well. So things either take 1 hour or 10 hours or 5 seconds, and I literally feel like I have no way of knowing, and that's very difficult for me. Follow a straight line of reasoning. So I thought about this for a bit, and I was like, I don't know what a straight line of reasoning even is. Like, what does that look like? What is a non-straight line? I don't know. But the answer is pretty much no. Because I think that whenever I am trying to think about what is true or what I think about something, it feels very convoluted and hard to explain. So stick to making decisions based on impersonal measures, such as the points earned. Okay, I hate making decisions in an impersonal way. It just doesn't make much sense to me because they're my decisions for my life. I understand that the purpose of really good TE is that it's this sense of fairness and this objectivity, but and I understand, like, it's one thing to like make a really personal, illogical decision and then affect a group of people in a way that's unfair. I would never want to do that, but especially when we're thinking about things that only affect me, like, I mean, it's just easier for me to make decisions based on emotions. I mean, I guess I'm quick to see the problems in these objective, impersonal measures. Like, I see all the limitations with that. Like, for example, whenever I'm working in marketing and I'm having to do these metrics for how well I'm doing week over week, and I'm supposed to say, like, oh, why is it that we increased in this measure over last week? I have a really hard time knowing, because I feel like anything could have happened. The sun could have been in Cancer that day. I know that's like ridiculous, but seriously, I'm like, I don't know why that didn't work. Maybe people just weren't feeling like it that day. It's like, I guess I just see so many things as random that it's very, very difficult for me to look at it in that way. So the answer is no. So another part 2, conceive a comprehensive plan to maximize progress toward goals. So I selected yes for this one. It's not something I do all the time, but if I absolutely have to do it, I do feel like I'm capable of doing it. And I do feel like it's very important. It's not something that I like to do that much, but I'll do it if it's important and if no one else is doing it. So part 3, mobilize resources and supervise implementation of a multi-part plan. So I feel like I'd be okay at supervising, but mobilizing resources and making all these different parts in a plan, that sounds just very stressful to me. I might be able to supervise it if the plan was already created, but I don't want to be the person to create it. So construct an argument to convince someone using evidence clearly in front of you both. I absolutely hate this. I would so much rather just explain to someone, hey, this is the way that I'm thinking about this. If you wanted to know how I'm thinking about it, please respect my freedom to think what I want, and I'll respect your freedom to think what you want. And maybe we can have a discussion and think about both of our ideas of what we think. Like, that's how I do it. And I don't like to convince people at all. Like, I seriously hate it. I don't see the point. I mean, if I was taking a logic class or a debate class, which I have had to do, then sure, I can do it. But if I'm just talking to someone about politics or about type or something that I have a strong opinion in and they disagree with me, then I tend to be like, okay, well, this is why I think this. And maybe I'll like say something that might sound convincing, but I won't like show my proof because I don't bring the evidence clearly in front of you. The last one says, lay out steps for others to complete tasks in time and resource efficient ways. So for this, I said yes. I've been having to do this a lot more lately, especially since I have been venturing into the world of self-employment and entrepreneurship. Because for things like this, especially if you're working with another person, it's just very important. And I'm realizing too that if I don't do this, I get burnt out. So for me, it's like I've kind of learned the hard way. So altogether I have 5, which indicates possible supporting preference or development from life experience. I would say that these 2 things I selected are things that I found that were absolutely crucial because I know what it's like to not do them. And I know that if I'm not managing my energy, that I get burnt out and tired and resentful of people around me. So that's sort of the lesson I've learned. I still don't like to do it, but there you go. So introverted thinking. Part 1. Accurately reference a framework such as a scientific theory or a philosophical principle. Yes, I love doing this, especially when we're talking about type. Typology is probably the number one thing that I use my TI for. It's something that I really have dove deep in. With other subjects such as politics or philosophy or other things, psychology, I use my TI sparingly because it's not something that I fully love, or I might have to like look it up and I might like forget the specific framework. But yeah, and even when I took philosophy in college, it was very easy for me to pick out the principles and understand like what fits a framework, what doesn't. So another thing it says is be guided by a logical principle, theory, or another nugget of reasoning. So I said yes for this. I really think about this a lot when it comes to metaphysical principles. And so metaphysical principles, and also the principles behind personality type, and also like some spiritual principles are big for me, as far as like what does trust mean? What does abundance mean? I think about these things based on how they work and the mechanics of it a lot, and I like to allow that to guide me. Like once something clicks, it clicks. Like if I understand what an abundance mindset means as a principle, then it's easier for me to apply, and it's not really something based on if I feel like it or not. It's something that once it clicks, it clicks. So detach yourself to analyze a situation from various angles. I feel like I always do this one. This is something that I didn't really learn. I mean, like the other two, I feel like I have done it because of passions and because I've tried to develop my intellect. But this one, detaching yourself to analyze a situation from various angles, I feel like I've done since I was a child. Because I always felt like I was wrong for, like, not that I was wrong, but I don't like the idea of feeling like I'm biased in a situation. So even if I'm just worried about like a crush or like what the girls at school think about me, I always wanted to still like analyze it. Anyway, part 2, take apart something to figure out the principles of which it works. I did not select this one. This is something that I could probably do if it was for school and I absolutely had to, but I don't really like to take things apart. It just seems tedious to me. I could do it if I had to. I don't want to. I'd rather just study a specific principle that I really resonate with, that I think matters, and then stick with that. Easily reference multiple frameworks at once while problem solving. No, I did not select this one. I feel like it's so much easier for me to stick to just one. Use leverage points to get the maximum effect with minimal effort. I feel like I could do this, but this is something that I forget to do. I tend to make things difficult on myself because I don't take the time to think about this. So, analyze and critique something to reconcile what doesn't fit with the framework's principles. I can do this very well if I love it. I do this with personality type. I can't think of anything else that I do this about. I feel like I'm getting there with astrology. I like astrology a lot. I just don't understand it enough. So I'm like, I doubt my thoughts that come up about it. But I do this very well with personality type, and that's about it. Okay. Fine-tune a definition or concept to support a theory, perspective, or framework. Again, this is something that I can do with personality type. I have done this. I do this all the time with personality. It is the part of personality type that I hate the most. This is absolutely tedious for me. I need help with it. I need to talk to friends while doing it. I don't know how to get myself to sit down and focus on it, but I do recognize the importance, and I am able to do it once it clicks to me. So that was weird. I related to a lot of them, but they all are under the condition of that I love what I'm doing. But I gave myself 9.5 points, maybe from 8.5 to 9.5, which indicates slightly of a preference, slightly supporting preference. So that makes sense. And I think that I love TI more than I love SE, because I think that I see it as the thing that's going to help me be taken seriously in the FE, so I care about it because it helps my FE. Whereas SE doesn't necessarily help my FE, and I think I take it for granted that I can kind of do it. So next up is FE. I probably am not going to say that much on this. Maybe I will, but I mean, I selected all of them. I relate to all of them. It's my dominant function. It's something, I mean, even like compared to NI, I selected all of them, but like for FE, like this is, when I was selecting stuff for NI, I was like, ooh, yeah, I do that. This is so much fun. But for FE, it's something that's like, I really could do this in my sleep. You know how it is, but I'll just read them. Easily discern other people's needs, preferences, and values. Yes, sometimes too much. Feel inclined to be responsible for and take care of others' feelings. Yes, this has been the problem that I've had most of my life, is that I don't know when to not be responsible for other people's feelings. Help people feel comfortable by engaging in hosting and caretaking. Yes, I absolutely love doing that. Recognize and adhere to shared values, feelings, and social norms to get along. Yes, even though I consider myself to be somewhat contrarian and counterculture, and I have some unpopular opinions, I literally refuse to share them if I don't think that they will be accepted. Even on my YouTube channel, where I know that I have complete control over who is what, or like what I say and what I do, I still care about it a lot. I still don't want to say something if it's not going to land. Merge and feel intimate openness with other people. Yes. If I can't feel that, I don't know what the point is, really. Reciprocate appreciation and honor the support that others give you. Absolutely. I just sort of, in my sleep, go back and forth. It's like, thank you. No, thank you. Love you. No, I love you. And you're so great. No, you're so great. Like, it's like such a reflexive thing. I always need to reciprocate. I feel so freaking guilty if I don't. So easily take on someone else's needs and values as your own. Yes, I literally don't know the difference between my needs and somebody else's needs at times, because I just see how connected it is, that if I just were to ignore and shut myself off to another person, that's going to impact the entire social fabric. So easily communicate personally to all members of a group to feel unity. Yes, I love doing that. I don't like just speaking only to some people, because then I feel like that makes everyone fragmented. So, hooray, 16 out of 16. Looks like I use FE. That's awesome. The last function, the moment you've been waiting for, is introverted feeling. So, feel strongly that something is good or bad. Yes. Most of the time, if it really matters to me. Yes. There are several moments where I really feel like I can go either way about things, but if you were to really ask me, then yeah, I feel like I definitely know when something is good versus if it's bad. Keep listening to your conscience while making daily choices. Absolutely, I do that quite a bit. Remain true to what you want for yourself or others. Absolutely. I would say that this is something that I have grown to be more interested in following certain codependent relationships I've been in. I have been in some relationships where I have put my own needs on the back burner. I'm also an Enneagram 2, so that is part of the reason why. But the reality is that I have had time to sit with myself and feel really single and really alone for like so long in my life that I literally can't not remain true to myself, if that makes sense. Like, I literally have learned the hard way. But I mean, even as a kid, I feel like I always would try and remain true to myself, but I would just get distracted between what other people wanted. And so it wasn't like I would do something that was untrue to myself, but I would sometimes forget to step up and be even more true, if that makes sense. But nowadays, I feel like I'm too old to waste my time not being true. So that's something that I'm a little bit more proactive about now than I used to be. So identify and defend what someone truly wants. This one's tricky because I don't tend to think about this. I probably could do that if I was asked, but I tend to give other people the autonomy to announce and declare what it is that they value or want. I don't feel like it's my job to guess. And I tend to, whenever I am, I guess, using FI, using it on me, I don't really use it on other people or think about other people in that way. I tend to just see people for the FE that they are showing, because I think that if it were to really matter, they would communicate it clearly, and I want to give them that freedom to communicate it in their own terms. So continually evaluate what is worth believing in and most important to you personally. So this is something that I checked. I do this, but I might forget to be proactive about it. It's something that I really like the idea of, and I that's awesome. Oh my goodness, you guys. I am literally almost done with this video, and this is the third recording software that I have used. So again, as you can see, I checked none of these boxes for SI, and so I did not check the battery of my camera, or I did not check the amount of storage left on my phone. So here we go. I only have 3 more things left, but FI is pretty much as I was saying. I do not evaluate whether or not something is worth believing unless I am being very proactive, but I have been intentionally trying to be proactive about that the past couple years. And I'm pretty good at discarding something that's not worth believing once I've decided that it's not. So remain in touch with what you want, what motivates you, and what is good. This is the aspect of FI that I feel like I do the most. I really want to remain in touch with that. And part of this is because of all the times I've not done that. I feel like I've done a decent job of integrating my FI into my FE and making my FE really want to protect my FI, if that makes sense. It's like my FE knows if I don't do certain things, then it's going to just leave me in a bad situation. So I try my best to like include a lot of these things in with my FE goals, because I just know how upset I will be if I lose touch with myself again, because I have been before. So create space within yourself for the truth of conflicting beliefs. Oh my goodness. So I did select yes on this, but this has been so freaking hard for me. And in fact, I just want to say that I think that in part, our divided political scene right now, especially in America, has been partially responsible for my ability to do this more. And I think that my FE and TI had a difficult time in being like, if half the world believes this and half of the world believes this, and I believe that what I believe is right and is considering the greater good, then how can I morally be okay with, I guess, the other side? I mean, I have to think to myself of like, how can I create space for love, even if I think that someone is wrong? So I feel like that's not something that I used to do. I used to be the sort of person that was just like, go ahead and block me if you think this. And I like would not even want to speak to anyone that didn't see the world in the way that I saw it. And I feel like because of how extremely divided everyone is getting, it's kind of had my FE realize, like, if I cannot, like, it's sort of like, sure, I might think that I'm right, but what do I want to do? Do I want 50% of the people to just go away? I mean, they're still going to be there, and I still am obligated to send love to them. So I do think I do that well. And the last one is continually weigh whether choices harmonize with important beliefs. So I did not select this one. I don't think that means that my choices don't harmonize with beliefs, but it's definitely not something that I consider very much, because I think that we do have to be a little bit flexible in this. Is that sometimes your choices don't have to harmonize 100%. Sometimes they are practical. Sometimes you choose a job that makes the most sense for you and is going to allow the most joy in your life, even if there's an aspect of it that doesn't fully harmonize 100%. Where I think this is just my FE, but it's like I'm wanting to harmonize with the results and try and make the best of things, rather than thinking that every single action and everything I do has to always fit. Which, I mean, I guess that's technically my belief still, but I didn't check that one. And my total points I got were 11, which indicates potentially supporting preference. I think that aside from, so FE and NI were top, and then FI was next, I believe. And let's see, what was NE? NE was 9, so I had slightly higher FI than NE compared to this. And then TE and SE, and then and then TI was after that. So yeah, you guys get the idea. Hopefully you found this interesting. I'm curious if you believe that these matched up with your type. Again, The Building Blocks of Personality Type is the book that I'm reading in the month of May, if you want to follow along with me. I also just want to let you guys know that I am hosting a workshop on May 16th that you can sign up for below, that is all about leveraging the power of your auxiliary function. So if you're watching this later on, I also am selling all of my workshops after the fact that you can find linked below. I really encourage you all to join my membership group, which is for people who have been studying type for a while and they really want to develop themselves. They want to use this knowledge to help them be a more well-rounded person and understand others. And it's less about learning type and more about using type to be happier and to improve your relationships. So the way that that works is you have to apply in the link below, and then you get 4 extra videos from me. You can ask me any questions in there, and you also get to participate directly in these workshops that I'm doing. So if you continue to stay in it, it's $33 a month. If you continue to stay in it, then you will get to just have all access to all of the workshops. The recordings of, they'll just keep on piling up, I guess is what I'm saying. I also offer typing services. Also, if you want to talk with me one-on-one, I'm still figuring out the forum for that, but you can reach out to me at hello@Meghan LeVota. And also, I recently put 16 type descriptions up on Patreon. The last announcement I'll say is that if you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm at Meghan LeVota. I've been posting a lot more on Instagram lately, so I could use some love on there. Wanting to post more typology tidbits. So I've been talking a lot. Thank you if you've stuck with me this whole time. Yeah, I appreciate all of you, and have a wonderful rest of your night or day, I guess.